What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Lucid. So today I'm going to be doing two videos, one of which is just going over some good questions that retail can pose to management. Then in my second video, I'll go over data points, shorts, and what they did and everything. But essentially, this is a rare opportunity that retail can pose questions to management and hopefully get some sound answers. So this is why I've always kind of focused on it. Unfortunately, I've been disappointed quite frequently by a lot of the questions because it seems people don't learn from their mistakes and tend to still ask the same ones, such as when are they going to be profitable? I think we are way too early to even start kind of talking about that. Comparing us to Tesla, what are we doing to fight against Tesla and take market share? I think that's too early to kind of talk about that. Some of the key topics that we should ask about is just simply put, production. So in case you do not know, on the 22nd at 4:30 Central, this is when this is going to open, and ultimately whatever is posed to and trending on day number one does get asked at the earnings call. So typically Lucid management does kind of answer 3 questions. If they feel bad for us for the earnings, sometimes they extend it to like 4 or 5, but there's going to be some key ones that I really care about. So ultimately, I know a lot of people are going to be talking about partnerships, and I know that does sound like a very solid type of question, but I kind of want to lean against asking those types of questions because generally we've seen Marc bring that up on his own accord throughout the earnings call. We can see that from the transcripts. He tends to just bring that up. So there's no point wasting a question asking about partnerships. And just on a side note, if you're going to pose a question, try to be as specific as possible. And I think just for face value, one like good question to Marc will just be more of an interview type of style question where, hey Marc, since you've become interim CEO, how do you think you've done? And what would you do different? I think that in among itself is a cut and dry question, and you would get the very honest answer from him. So I think that one for face value would be good. Another kind of couple questions to really ask about is tariffs. So potentially, what is Lucid doing to avoid and kind of bypass tariffs? Because for an example, I live in Canada. I think right now we are hit with a 35% tariff. And yeah, so ultimately there's no real point in me ordering a Lucid because it's just not efficient. What is Lucid doing to bypass the tariffs? I don't know if you can just outright ask that, but is Lucid ultimately looking at AMP2 fulfilling orders for regions that are hit by tariffs? I feel like that is a very well worded question. So yeah, ask about what they're doing for tariffs. And I think in general, as I've mentioned in previous videos, AMP2 is going to be very important just for on a logistical standpoint to kind of distribute to the East, to Europe. Technically, as I've done a video on in, I think it was early 2025, to truck a vehicle from AMP1 to, let's say, where I live in Canada, it was going to cost roughly around, I think, $1,600, give or take. And if AMP2 was going to ship it, boat it to the port, I think in the east and of Canada, of course, and then just train it to where I live, it would be roughly $2,000. So $400 difference. That is it between AMP1 and AMP2. And of course, anything out of AMP2 would bypass the tariffs. So again, moral of the story, tariffs are going to be a very hot topic for Lucid. And so I think that one will be a must ask question. ESS. I've always been a very big fan of ESS. I've been somewhat let down by Lucid by them kind of pushing it aside. But even with this right here, so Ministry of Energy, Saudi Arabia is working on a massive battery project with a capacity of 48 gigawatts. This is something that Lucid can really capitalize on. And logically, given Saudi Arabia's 2030 vision, it would make sense for Lucid to pick that back up. So what is Lucid doing to obtain revenue? So I feel like that's another hot topic that we can ask coming from a retail standpoint. And I know I kind of brought this up a while back, but technically with right now we're in July, we haven't really heard anything about the Gravity Touring. So we've seen a lot of kind of PRs about the GT, but nothing about the Touring. Touring, technically, from what we've seen from rumors, is going to be roughly around that $79,900 range for price point. Very advantageous given the GT's price. So logically speaking, where is Lucid at with the Gravity Touring? And potentially, because of the issues with the GT, is that going to impact potentially the midsize? So again, I'm just kind of speaking out loud, very informal. I'm sure people can kind of compile a good, well-worded question. And for those of you that are curious, because of this right here, so this 𝗖𝗓 platform, a lot of the brokers that I use that I have Lucid shares in, they don't recognize that. So this is primarily for just a lot of the big ones, so IBKR through Canada, but most of the American brokers you can use. So this is kind of puts a lot of foreign individuals like myself at a disadvantage that I can't really pose questions. This is why I always stress it to a lot of you individuals, say, hey, pose questions, and if you have good ones, I'll push them out as best as I can through my platforms, whether it be videos or social media. So tariffs, touring, ESS, just generally how Marc thinks he's doing, I think all are very hot topic type of things. There's also one thing that I feel like he does need to address. And in case you do not know, on Monday, there was a new interview that was listed right here, and I posted it, and essentially he said one thing that really kind of put me off, because I've been investing in Lucid and covering Lucid for a very long time, too long in fact. But when it comes down to his viewpoint, he shows and kind of spoke on the whole reverse stock split, how he wants to move away from retail investors to more institutional. And I get it. Technically there is some correlation between very heavy retail presence stocks and shorts. Shorts love to target those types of stocks that have a lot of retail, because a lot of retail act emotionally. They're easy to take advantage of. So maybe that's what Marc is kind of bringing up, but I'd like a question, just say, hey, you mentioned in this Fox Business interview that you want to move away from retail, and that retail pretty much caused the pullback that did happen on Monday because they sold. As crazy and as dumb as that is. So I feel like he needs to really bring that up, because normally Marc, in my opinion at least, is very well spoken. This comes off as weak. Nothing I hate more than a CEO that tries to use some whatever as a scapegoat. If your stock went down, like, don't be dumb. Honestly, the reason why Lucid went down is because you announced a 1-for-10 reverse stock split to essentially incentivize institutional investors. And in case you do not know, what he means is technically where Lucid is at is considered a penny stock. Anything below $5 is considered a penny stock. Because of that stipulation, that does restrict some institutions from buying Lucid. More specifically, you cannot use, or institutions cannot use, margin to buy Lucid, or a lot of pension funds do not allow the purchase of penny stocks. So to blame retail for selling off and wanting to do this reverse stock split, it just doesn't add up, to at least myself. So for him to kind of say that is a very big slap in the face to any retail investor that's been holding it since CCIV stages, or even over the last year and a half, because I don't know what he is smoking, but Lucid stock price over the last 5 years has been crap. So for him to somehow allude to all of this being retail's fault is just WTF. That is just, I don't like that at all, and I don't like any CEO that uses a scapegoat. If you screw up, and if you announce a reverse stock split, well, shame on you. You need to know the repercussions of that. So just like asking a question on him to elaborate on why he is and finds it advantageous to avoid retail investors. So again, this is just me ranting a little bit, but this is a rare opportunity to pose questions to management. So we need to be as specific as possible, try to avoid any questions about profitability, like I mentioned, and partnerships. Even though it's very tempting, I want to ask about partnerships, but that's something Marc over the last 2 earnings has brought it up on his own accord. So I would personally avoid that. And same for just other interesting questions like what you've had for lunch or anything like that. We don't care. We only care about pretty much things I mentioned and just dilution. I think that's also another hot topic, but let me know your general thoughts. If you do pose any questions to management for this and you feel like it is good, feel free just to push the link to me in the comments, and I will be more than happy to, on all my platforms, put that question out and yeah, get it out to the as masses or whoever watches my videos as best as possible, because again, this is in my opinion, a pretty good opportunity for us to get some good credible answers. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Stay tuned for my PM video where I go over what shorts did, data points, and everything else that you need to know. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I do give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.